This is the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast with Sal and Sam, a new podcast for engaged couples concerned about wedding planning and family expectations but want a stress-free, fun, and unforgettable wedding.
Hi, I'm Sal from After Hours Events of New England, the leader in making your wedding stress-free.
Hi, I'm Sam from Atmosphere Productions Disc Jockey Service. Experience the difference of a stress-free wedding with our extensive experience and the difference in quality.
Welcome to the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast.
What is the most stressful part of planning a wedding? Why is wedding planning so stressful? How can I manage wedding anxiety? What are the signs of wedding planning stress?
After listening to this edition, you will know and understand the answer to these questions and learn how to handle your wedding planning stress and put it to use today.
With over 80 years of combined wedding experience and insider information, this is Stress-Free Wedding Planning with your hosts, Sal and Sam, a new podcast for engaged couples who are stressed about wedding planning and family expectations, but want to have a fun wedding. Listen now for revealing wedding insider secrets, tips, and strategy or lesson that you'll be able to implement for a stress-free wedding. Information that you just can't miss and may just change your life. Take the journey with us from worry and concern to a stress-free and unforgettable wedding day. The Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast with Sal and Sam.
In today's edition, learn the 4 most common questions about managing wedding planning stress. Wedding stress is normal, but how to solve the problem is not so well known. I'm Sam from Atmosphere Productions Disc Jockey Service. Experience the difference of a stress-free wedding with our expert knowledge and the difference in quality.
Hi, I'm Sal from After Hours Events of New England, the leader in making your wedding stress-free. Learn more about our journey to help you with stress-free wedding planning in the trailer or pilot of this podcast.
In today's edition, we're going to try and not stress you out because we're going to answer the 4 questions about managing wedding planning stress that we seem to see the most. Sal's a little stressed today. So this is a good time to do this.
I guess so.
I'm a little stressed almost every day. So the 4 top questions: what is the most stressful part of planning a wedding? Why is wedding planning so stressful? How can I manage wedding anxiety? And what are the signs of wedding planning stress? Those are kind of the 4 things that we kind of run into all the time. We're going to kind of knock those down for you. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, we will help you to manage your wedding planning stress. Firstly, what is the most stressful part of planning a wedding? Sal, you know the answer to that one, of course.
Yeah, it seems to be being able to figure out who sits where and with whom. Because as we know, Cousin Susie can't be with you know who, because, there's just so many landmines that you could fall into, and you just want to be careful.
It's the guest list. Most people agree that finalizing that guest list is the most stressful part. Everybody else tends to put their opinions in at this point as well.
Never at all. I've never seen that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Because even though Aunt Susie doesn't want to sit next to Uncle Bill, somebody else will say, but Uncle Bill and Susie just made up last week and they've been chatting with each other and it's good. And it's not. Other people's opinions, this is kind of where you have to kind of draw the line and say, look, we're going to do it this way. If Susie and Bill don't want to sit next to each other, that's too bad because those are the only seats that we have left available. They have to sit here.
Well, let's be grown-ups.
Exactly. Something has to be done to get that balance together. Along with that is that arranging where the tables go as well complicate matters. Are you going to have 8 people sitting at the table or 10 people sitting at the table? Are you going to have that table with Sue and Bill off in the corner there, or are they going to be right up front next to the couple? These are all questions that need to be answered. So how do you relieve that stress?
Firstly, you don't want to offend anybody. You definitely don't want to leave anyone out.
Right.
Maybe one way to handle it is the person that you may think you have a problem with, maybe talk to them and see if there's really a problem with the 2 people that you think has a problem, and you may not even have one.
You might be surprised that people are telling you that there's a problem, but there really isn't a problem. So go to the source, right?
Absolutely, because just like everyday life, you should always go to the source because you just can't trust. The rumor mill. You know how that works. Right. You could say, a sentence to me right now, I'll say it to someone else, and it ends up being totally different by the time we get to the end of the line.
And especially if it's typed, it has a totally different meaning too in a text than it does coming
Absolutely.
verbally.
Absolutely.
Along with that guest list as well is having no kids at the reception. You have to decide with your guest list, is it going to be an adult reception or is it going to be, one that you have kids? And we dealt with this in a previous episode. So if you want to look back on that, try and listen to the episode that we did about adults only reception. You'll find some great information there. So the guest list really is one of the most stressful parts of planning the wedding reception. We give you a couple of ideas on how you can kind of relieve that stress. You don't have to have 200 people coming to your wedding.
Absolutely not. And something else I want to kind of bring up is, you have the RSVP list and you always say, oh, by this date, you have to let me know if you're coming or not. Make that date earlier than normal. Because one of the stressful things of trying to create this list is getting these names in on time to create the list to start with. So I'm finding that more and more couples have to call people just to find out if they're coming or not because they didn't get back to you. So if you push that date to an earlier time, it gives you a little more time to work these things out and less stress that way.
And that seems to be a trend, though, Sal, is that sending the RSVPs back is getting problematic. Couples are finding that people are not sending the RSVPs and you've got to end up calling. That's another stressful part. So if you're a guest and you get an RSVP, send it back right away. Don't wait to the last minute.
And don't just assume you could just show up that day without one, because there is not going to be a seat or even a table for you.
Or the reverse of that is just not show up at all and not give the couple a heads up, because they still have to pay for that meal that was allocated for you. And that could be an expense if you have 10, 15, or 20 people that don't show up. So don't do that. Don't be that type of person. Question number 2, why is wedding planning so stressful? That's the second question on our list of managing your wedding stress. 4 questions that we're going to try and help you with. Why is wedding planning so stressful? This is like a question that has so many permutations for the answer. We'll just take a couple. Firstly, it's a lot of work.
It's absolutely a lot of work. You have to fit this into your already busy schedule.
Yes.
The dynamics nowadays are so different than they were back in the day. Sometimes you have kids already. Not only do you have to worry about work and what you have to do with your kids on a weekly basis, now you got to try to plan this wedding on top of it.
Yep. Or you might be buying a house or selling a house. I mean, you add those into the permutation, getting a new job or transferring to a new location.
I had a couple who had all those things happening at the same exact time, and they were leaving the state on top of it. So that was just so much stress.
You push your wedding off for another year if stuff comes up with that. It really is not. Communication issues within planning that seem to be another item. What is it with couples that just can't communicate with their family members or friends? This is the most important day of your life, and you feel difficulty communicating with others. You really have to step up the game. And some of those topics that you don't want to talk about, you have to start communicating.
And the communication is not just with your family and friends, with each other.
Yes.
It's very important you're communicating well. Keeping notes for each other is key, because you're going to forget things and you're like, I told you this. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yep.
So have everything where you both could see it at all times. Yep. And so there's no misunderstandings, because if you two work together, it's going to make it so much better.
No doubt. Along with that communication comes financial discussion and work out a budget. That's why one of the first things after selecting your date is creating a budget, because that will really assign what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, because not everybody has $1 million budget to spend on a wedding. Some people only have $5,000. Some only have $10,000. And that's not a slight. That's a fact. If you can't afford a $100,000 wedding and you have a $10,000 budget, it can't be done. There's no way that you're going to stretch 10 grand into 100 grand.
Not at all.
So you have to work within your means. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, you got to remember that. That is just so vital. I've watched couples where they know they only have this budget, but then they saw this. Oh, wow, that was so incredible. I got to have. Do you really have to have it? Because it's going to hurt you more than help you. So
I mean, in the old days, I know you know this joke well, and maybe I have to explain it. Is we used to joke about the chair chair covers. How much couples used to spend on chair covers was way exorbitant on what they wanted to spend on the DJ. Yeah. And we used to joke that a chair cover has never saved a wedding, but a DJ has. It's an old joke, but it's so true. Stay within your budget of what you can afford, and honestly, that will relieve so much of your planning stress. Dealing with your parents is another stressful thing that comes. And this is where most couples don't want to communicate. They don't want to say things to mom and dad. And this is where you might have to broach that subject. Dad, mom, are you going to help us pay for the wedding? Can you give us X amount of dollars? Ask up front. 99% of the time, the answer that you are expecting is really not the answer that your parents are going to give you. Or vice versa, of course.
Yes. It's very rare that it goes the other way. So it is important, to definitely know all that information up front. You can't make any assumptions. And if you go in with assuming, you're going to start doing things you shouldn't be doing and then realize, oh, I will never reach my goal because I can't afford this.
That's right.
So you just have to be realistic at all time. And, understand you need to have an adult conversation.
When we come back, we're going to discuss how you manage your wedding anxiety and what are the signs of wedding planning stress.
You're listening to the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast.
Wedding Tip Wednesday is brought to you by Emerge Cosmetics. Are you ready to emerge? A new line of luxurious lipsticks and lip glosses created with the intention of empowerment and coming into who you truly are. Strong, beautiful, and confident. Use coupon code EBI10 at shopemergecosmetics.com for an instant 10% discount. That's coupon code EBI10 for 10% discount at shopemergecosmetics.com. Emerge as the true you.
On this Wedding Tip Wednesday, drones are cool. They are not toys. Not just anyone can fly these craft. Make sure your photographer or filmmaker has the proper liability insurance and the FAA certified remote pilot license part 107. There are hefty fines for non-compliance.
And if you want to go back and re-listen to one of our episodes, go back to the episode with Carson Fitzner, and that's edition 17. It explains in detail what you should look for in your photographer or filmmaker if they're using a drone.
There's your Wedding Tip Wednesday.
Wedding Tip Wednesday is available on the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Facebook group page every Wednesday. Join the group for free.
Don't know what to do for your first dance? Is your future spouse having trouble picking a song to dance with their parent? Worry no more. I have the answer. Go to afterhoursevents.com/contact guest. That is CONTACTGUEST. And you'll be able to listen to hours of music to help you select the right songs for your upcoming wedding. Again, go to afterhoursevents.com/contact guest.
Do you want access to a stress-free wedding planning process? Then go to our website, allthews.atmosphere-productions.com, and get my free report. 8 questions you must ask a wedding professional before booking them. Get it today. That's allthews.atmosphere-productions.com. Look for the free report and learn to shop like a pro from a pro, and go from concern and worry to stress-free wedding planning.
You're listening to the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast.
Thanks for joining us again on the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Podcast, and we're discussing 4 questions about managing wedding planning stress. First up, we discussed the most stressful part of your wedding, and we discussed with you about that guest list. That always seems to be the one thing that gets everybody. And then Sal and I discussed with you about the wedding planning, why it's so stressful. And the major take we got from that was the communication issues and dealing with parents and financial issues and scheduling issues. Now we're down to how you can manage your wedding anxiety. I always remember the Mel Brooks movie, High Anxiety, where he's paranoid about everything. That's how it seems like with wedding planning. Even DJs get nightmares about their equipment blowing up or not working. Trust me, you are not the only one that has anxiety. But how do we get over that? Well, getting organized is the first thing I want
Number
to
one,
say.
absolutely.
If you're not organized, then everything is going to seem like you're anxious about. And this is where we suggest that you consider hiring a wedding planner, because a wedding planner is going to organize you. If you're not an organized person, don't think for your wedding you're going to be organized.
All of a sudden, yes, I've never done that. I've never been organized in my life. This will be the one time, I swear.
Or if you can't maybe afford a wedding planner, then how about going with the day of coordinator to help you shoulder some of that burden? That is the biggest takeaway from most couples is after their wedding, they say, we should have got a wedding planner. Or we're so happy that we did get a wedding planner.
Yeah, yeah. You know, worst case scenario, you can't afford either one of those things is having the friends or family that you trust and help delegate some of the responsibilities, and that could be a huge help. So you know who those family members or friends are.
Yeah.
Don't ever do it on that friend that you know has always been shaky, because that's just even more stressful. So always go with the people you trust.
Maybe Aunt Sue is a great person that plans all the holiday parties, or Uncle Bill is great at organizing family getaways. They may be the people that you ask to, hey, I need help. And that's another thing. Ask for help. Don't be bashful.
And you'll be surprised how many people are willing to do that for you.
Yes.
That gets them excited.
Yeah. That they've been asked to be part of your big celebration, and you've taken it upon yourself to ask them to do something that's so difficult, because planning a wedding is not easy, and asking somebody for help and getting them involved in the process is an honorable thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. The act of you asking is usually like, oh, I'm so honored that you came up to me and, and asked this. And now they get excited and they help you, and look what happens.
That's it. So you're shouldering off all of that anxiety to other people, really. So the final question that gets asked most often are, what are the signs of wedding planning stress? Difficulty sleeping.
Yes.
And dreaming those wild scenarios in your head. And I'm the DJ. I'm not the couple.
And wild isn't, that's an understatement, okay? Wild is an understatement. It's so unreal. It's
like you were telling me earlier about you had a dream pushing your equipment on a bicycle.
About cart with a bicycle. Yeah. I was like, what was going on there?
So again, you're not the only one that goes through these dreams of anxiety, panic attacks. If you start getting nervous, or headaches that just don't seem to go away, stomach problems, and other stressful symptoms. If you're getting all that type of stuff, one of our Wedding Tip Wednesdays was just drop everything. If you're starting to get those type of symptoms, take a week off from wedding planning. Just stop, because you'll only get worse. These symptoms are a signpost of bigger troubles coming down the road. So you really want to, if you start getting some of these symptoms, is to lay low, relax, call in some help, and maybe this is the time that you call that wedding planner that you thought
you may need there. But if it's affordable, do things for yourself as a couple. Go get a pedicure together.
Yeah.
Do something that's relaxing. Go on a date night. Don't talk about the wedding. Something I suggest as you get closer to the big day, when it comes to eating, stay away from foods that typically upset you, because it may be 3 times as worse now that you're all nerved up.
Oh, absolutely. Another stress reliever that seems to be fashionable and new now is taking boudoir pictures before the wedding and gift that to your partner. Now, that may be a great stress reliever for you, but there's also another aspect of this.
There's a boudoir, too, so the guys could actually have their pictures taken. And what's cool about this whole thing, I had once a photographer who had me, while I was wiring the groom for his microphone for the ceremony, I slipped a picture in his inside pocket, and he didn't know about it. And just before the bride was to come down the aisle, the photographer whispered to the groom, "There's a picture in your pocket. Check it out." And here he sees this boudoir picture. And, oh my God, she's so beautiful.
Yep.
And this, kind of like, wow, okay, now I'm here now. I'm here.
Change the tension of the moment.
Absolutely.
Yep. And that's why a first look works so well as well, is that it relieves that tension of the day, that you see each other and you're like, all right, we are both on the same page now. That's why a first look seems to work. But yes, that's a great idea about the boudoir.
Boudoir, and she gets to see it just before she walks down the aisle. How cool is that?
How cool is that? So you see that you can use these anxiety and these panic attack, these nervous signs that you're getting to your advantage with your wedding planning. You can also sit down and have an honest conversation with your partner and tell them, hey, look, I'm having these issues. Let's just take a step back for a while. You may want to reduce the planning of your wedding session. Instead of having 200 people there, maybe you're going to bring it down to 80 people. Whatever it is, once you see these signs coming, try to use those signs as a signpost that, well, maybe something has to change.
And please, whatever you do, respect your partner who needs these changes.
Yeah.
Because some have in the mind, well, it has to be 200 people. Well, maybe 200 is just too much for that other person. And it may not be about the cost. It may just be, I can't have 200 sets of eyes on me. I can't deal with that.
I've heard of that so many times that people have changed their wedding plans from having these big weddings to just running off and going to Vegas and having it done just the two of them. And if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do, really.
Yeah, take care of yourself. Your mental health is so important.
So we've discussed with you the 4 questions about managing your wedding planning stress that most commonly come up. Once again, the question is what is the most stressful part of planning your wedding reception? Obviously, the answer to that is the guest list. We went over that with you. Why is wedding planning so stressful? It is, isn't it? It is about communication. We discussed with you that you have to communicate with everybody that's part of your wedding planning. How can I manage wedding anxiety? We explained to you, hire a wedding planner or day of coordinator to help you shoulder some of that burden. And number 4, what are the signs of wedding planning stress? Difficulty sleeping, anxiety, panic attacks, nervousness, headaches. If you're seeing any of these symptoms, you need to probably stop your wedding planning, take a break, take a weekend away, do something that's different so that you can feel better about yourself and bring that workload back into balance with your life.
You're listening to the Stress Free Wedding Planning Podcast.
Remember those 4 questions I asked earlier? We answered those questions, and you learned how to manage your stress and anxiety and how to put it to use today.
Now, as you spend the next week planning your wedding, if you want me, Sam, and our community of stress-free engaged couples and wedding experts to answer any wedding-related question, join us over in the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Facebook group. Once you're in, go ahead and share your concerns and worries, and we'll let you know if you're on the right track or if there's something you should be working on. The link to join us is in the show notes of this edition, or go to Facebook and search for the Stress-Free Wedding Planning Community.
The Stress Free Wedding Planning Podcast is produced and copyrighted by Atmosphere Productions in association with After Hours Events of New England.